4 errors beginners make when using React hooks, and it can impact the system depending on the size. Hello guys, welcome to the channel and let's get started with these 4 errors. Let's take a look on this scenario. Here I have two fields with name and last name. So I'll type first name, last name, and below here we have the full name. It's working, so what is the problem here? The problem is because we are using another state just for the full name. And actually this is not necessary. When we start learning React, we know that everything that we update on screen needs to be a state. But in this case, name and last name are already a state, so the full name doesn't need to be one. And also, for each letter I type here on name and last name, I have a full reload of my component. And I will talk about that and how to improve. But first, let's fix this full name. So we don't need this to be a state. I can remove the state and the use effect here. And I can have just a const full name, just like that. And here, I'll set the first name, space, last name. And if I save it, it should continue work the same. So let's see. I'll type first name and last name. And as you can see, everything works. But now we don't have another state and we are saving the system from reload twice when I type each letter. Now let's go to the second error. I'll change the component here. And here in this form, I have name and email and a button send. I'm using a state for each input. That's common for beginners to make, but is it really necessary? Let's see the problem here. I will open my developer inspector. I'll go to profiler and I will start recording how many times my component is full reloaded. So I click here. Let's see. So name, just a test email. And I click send. I will stop recording the profiler and as we can see, my component reloaded 24 times just typing two fields in my form. However, we are not using name and email in any other place but here on submit. Only here we are using these fields. So it doesn't need to be a state. We can change it to be a reference like this. Const name have use have, and I'll start with new just because I'm using TypeScript here. The same for email, email ref, use ref, starting as new, and I can remove these two states here. Here in the components, I don't need to use value and onChange. The only thing I need here is have. So name, have, the same for email, email have, and that's it. But here on submit we have an error because we don't have more these two variables. So here I will use name as a key and I will use name have dot current dot value. Here we have a small problem because I'm using TypeScript. So here it doesn't know that value exists inside the current. What we can do is just to pass the mouse over here and see where's the type. Just copy the type and let's type the use have. Okay, but as we start as new, we need to use this operator here, and now it knows that my current has a variable named value. Perfect. The same for email. So name have dot current dot value. Perfect. We have the same here. Now we change it to a have. Let's see how many times my screen is full reloaded. I will start recording. I reload here. And let's see. Just a test email. I'll click send and I'll stop. So my screen was reloaded just one time when it was created. That's fantastic. We reduce the times we need to reload the component from 24 to just one when it was created, as we don't need to access the value on any other place but on submit. And here we have the JSON we can send to the server or any other thing. And let's see here in the console. And yes, we have here the JSON, but where is my email? Of course, if I don't put the correct reference here, it won't be correct. So let's try again. And as you can see, here we have the JSON correct, just load the component one time. And now let's go to the third error. Let's change it to the other component. And here we have a simple counter. When I click plus, I am incrementing my counter, and minus, I'm decrementing my counter. And it's working perfect. So what is the problem here? When we are updating the count, we are using the state variable. And let's imagine this variable can be updated in another component or in another function. So here we may not have the updated value, and it can be a problem. Just for testing, let me duplicate this set count here. And what we expect to happen now? We have set count that increments related to the amount, and a set count again incremented related to the amount, minus or plus. So we imagine it will increment by 2. Really? Let's see if that happens. I will reload my screen, and when I click plus, no, it's not updating by 2, it's updating by 1. But why? So here we are using the state variable, and the set count that will update my variable is asynchronous. So right after I call the set count here, the variable count is not updated yet, and that's why it's not working. Because, for example, when I start, count is 0. So here I'm set 0 plus 1, and here I'm setting again 0 plus 1. So it won't increment by 2. And we can prevent this by using the function we receive here and the set state. Here we receive a function with the current and updated value we have for count. On many tutorials, you see here is previous, but I think this variable as the current value because it's not updated yet. So it's not the previous one, it's the current value. And here we can just return current plus amount. And I save, and by reloading the screen, when I click, it works as the same. But now, if I duplicate this code, I will have a different behavior. Let's see, I'll save it here. And when I click plus, now I'm incrementing my count by 2, because here I ensure that every time I access this variable, I have access to the updated value. So that's the big difference here. So every time you need to access a state value, use in this way and you never get the wrong value. And let's go to the fourth error that is almost the same. For example, if I change this again to count plus amount, it's very common to see an error like this when you want to see the new value of count, and we do something like console log, and we use here count. So if I open the console and I click plus, I can see that my component has 1, but my console has 0. And that happens because of the same thing I just said. The set function of a state is asynchronous. So right after I call the function, here I don't have the updated value. So if I need to do something right after the value is updated, I need to use effect function. Because here I can set a dependency like count, and the use effect will only be called when count is changed. So here I can set the console log, and let's see what happens. When I click plus, I can see 1 here and one here, and it works perfectly because the use effect is only called when my variable count is really updated. And these were the 4 errors. I hope this video was useful. See you next time.